Hi guys from Canada. Today I'm gonna prove that compressor is equalizer. I'm gonna show you even how different compressors EQ differently and why exactly. People say I EQ and then I control volumes with compressor. Or people say I filter first, then I control dynamics with compressor and then I EQ. What are you talking about? Compressor is equalizer as well. Let's do it like this. After this video, ask yourself if you learned something new and unique. If the answer is yes, remember there is one of the most powerful audio production courses, and I put only 10% of its power to my videos. 90% of its power I keep for my students. And I provide a free trial class. You will be connected to a real class with my students who are taking this course right now, so you can see exactly how we study, so you can decide. 9 months online monthly payments. If you want not some random ideas, but very structured crafted system from A to Z with things that really work, no bullshit approach, it's not information traveling from one YouTuber to another, it's not some commercial statements by plugin manufacturers. In the end, you're not gonna be that small guy who always chasing after some techniques of somebody famous, or hoping that the next plugin will finally make it for you. You're gonna be that big guy for yourself, who knows the solution in any situation. The information about me, my course and reviews you can find in the first pinned comment. But instead of reading, just get a free trial class and ask for the course details in email. How to contact me, the information is in the first pinned comment or in the description or on the screen. Let me show you why compressor is equalizer first, and then I'm gonna show you scientific explanation why. Okay, so this is Canadian Anthem remix. Or scary version of Canadian Anthem. To represent crazy politics and everything what's going on, right? I'm gonna mute a hi-hat so we can pay attention more to high frequencies of a snare drum. As you can see, all my compressors are disengaged. Notice how the snare drum sounds dark. Now I engage a compressor, and notice how snare drum becomes crazy bright. Before, dark. After, bright. So compressor is equalizer. But the value of this video is why. Stay tuned, I'm gonna show you absolutely crazy mixing concept which I realized for myself back in the days. Next, I'm gonna show you kick, snare and vocal examples. This is how this waveform of the snare drum looks like. A lot of people have misconception, they believe that frequency balance of some instrument is always like the same. In reality, in some instruments, the beginning of a note can have absolutely unique frequency balance, and in the middle of a note it could be different frequency balance, and let's say in the tail, absolutely different frequency balance. So this snare sample simply has darker beginning and brighter tail. How compressor works? We have a threshold. It's a dynamic processor, right? So we put threshold down and we make some peaks above the threshold. So peaks above the threshold will be compressed more than tail. So peaks go down. The whole snare sample becomes quieter in general. It's a volume suppression tool, it makes everything quieter. So compressor, either automatically or you by makeup gain manually, you normalize volume after compression. Because otherwise snare drum just simply will be too quiet in the mix. So you compensate volume, and when you raise snare drum back to normal volume, the tail part, this kind of part in the end, becomes louder. But this part contains the whole brightness of the snare drum, and that's why overall sound of the snare drum becomes brighter. Before compression, tail was too quiet, and you just simply didn't hear it in the mix because the tail was too quiet and all its brightness were too quiet. Then when I apply a compressor, we basically keep the same volume of a snare drum, but we make the tail much louder, and the tail contains brightness, and this is how I bring all this brightness to the surface. Before, much better example right now with the kick drum, where I'm scientifically gonna show you how exactly it's happening. Listen to the kick, it sounds very muddy. Now I apply this DBX compressor, and it sounds brighter. Check it out. Before, darker. So this is original kick sample. I'm gonna tell you. So we have brighter part in the beginning, darker in the middle, and brighter in the end. You put this threshold down below peaks. First of all, what really significantly will be compressed in volume is peaks above the threshold. Of course, if it's a soft knee compressor, even peaks below the threshold can be compressed a bit. In this compressor DBX, which I use over here on this kick, it's exactly the case. We have only peaks above the threshold, which will be lowered down in volume. Will be suppressed in volume like this. I use Vintage Graphic Editor for vintage sound in videos. So sorry for that. Anyway, we're gonna have basically right now what? Kick drum, which sounds in general quieter because we put some of those peaks and we made them quieter. I bring it up to original volume, and this is what we did. We made this bright part louder, and we made this bright part louder. And DBX compressor, by the way, has crazy short release time, which means definitely the tail will go up very quickly. I have this kick split in 3 pieces, so this is the beginning of a kick. It's transient. With the frequency analyzer, I quickly gonna measure frequency response of those pieces. So first piece, transient, taken. Now the body, second piece. And the third part is the tail. You have the beginning of a kick, which is green. You have the middle of a kick, which is white. Compression affects what? White. White element goes down in volume. I can do it over here, and I put the slider a bit down like this. Green frequencies will become much more prominent in comparison to white. So those lows, which were originally like in white color over here, in comparison to green, it went down. Green becomes more prominent. Green originally contains a lot of upper, mid-range, and highs. This kick in general becomes too quiet in the mix. Now you take the whole new structure and you put all those things up in volume. It's called makeup gain. It's on the output of a compressor, right? And you make everything louder. On the left you can see before compression, in the middle after compression, and on the right after with volume normalization. Upper, mid, and highs over here. Now, after volume normalization, high frequencies become over here, which is brighter than that upper mid-range which was originally. And highs also become louder than original high frequencies, which were a bit quieter before. So as you can see, this is how you make kick drum brighter. So don't tell me compressor is just volume control. Compressor changes frequencies as well. Each compressor has unique release curve, release time, attack curve, soft knee, hard knees. Just imagine how all those parameters will modify eventually frequency balance of different instruments, and even it depends on the instrument itself, what kind of frequencies originally you have in your instruments, in the beginning of notes, in the middle, in the end. The other aspect in understanding of how compressor change frequency balance is coloration of compression. Some compressors like very known to emphasize like those warm low mid frequencies, depending on where the second interharmonic for the instrument exactly. And of course you make sound warmer. Of course it will not be like very pronounced equalization, but definitely you're gonna feel some subtle changes. And if you have at least this level of understanding, which is probably not even 50% of beginners have, it's already not too bad for you, right? So if you understand how harmonics changes frequency balance of a compressor. In this case, you already know that compressor is equalizer. But what I showed you today, it's totally next level in understanding of compressors, where people really start to think that in the beginning of a note, it's one frequency balance, in the middle is the other one, and in the end is the third one, and compressor totally differently can manage levels of the beginning of a note, middle of a note, and the end of a note. And we're not talking about transient and sustained separate processing. We're literally talking about normal compressor. You change the volume balance between beginning of the notes, middle of the notes, and the end of notes. By the way, very quickly, I encourage you to help animals. I do it literally every month. I donate more than $600 literally every month to some organizations in Canada, but most of all I help 3 organizations in Ukraine, which I personally know they really help. Always double check if those people really help animals. Actually, I do it more than 10 years, but let's say from this January, roughly $600 to these 3 organizations is January 1st. This is January 30th. This is February 26th, April 4th, as you can see. May 1st, as you can see, and June 4th, as you can see. So this is what I encourage you to do. If not us, then who? Another example is a compressor sidechain. Like on this LA2A compressor, particular control on this compressor called R37 screw, which you control with a screwdriver. Basically, what you really do with this compressor, you trick it. Let's come back to the snare drum of this project. We have this screw, as you can see, this like little point point out that it's 5 o'clock right now, right? So it's 5 o'clock. So when screw all the way to the right, this compressor basically listens to the whole frequency spectrum. So if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for this compressor it will be sounding like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I'm gonna put the screw all the way to the left, you basically take frequencies below 1K and you lower them down. So for the compressor it will be sounding like you for some reason have much less lows than you really have. By the way, notice it's not what you're gonna hear. It's only made for the compressor itself. So now screw is put all the way to the right side and I make it 7 dB of compression. So when I create option B and I rotate this screw driver all the way to the left, it means this compressor will not hear as much lows. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will be sounding like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you're not gonna hear it. Only this device will hear it. So for this device, overall level of the whole instrument, of course, will be quieter. That's why, if I press play right now, you don't see 7 decibels of compression, you see less. You see only 2 decibels of compression. LA28 doesn't actually has a particular threshold because it's more like soft knee compressor. But let's say it has some rough kind of position of a threshold. We take this note and we put it above the threshold, so we get 7 dB of compression. Now imagine something inside of a compressor makes this compressor believe that this thing has much quieter lows and mids. Obviously overall volume also becomes quieter, right? Which means volume, which is amplitude obviously, of this particular note becomes shorter. Quieter, lower peaks. Obviously with lower peaks you get less compression. That's why you hear those 2 dB of compression only. It's totally not fair to compare more compression versus less compression. It would not be really an indicator how sidechain sounds, right? It would be more like, hey, I just compared more compression versus less compression. So that's why what I do, I compensate those changes. And I also want to have 7 dB of compression even for the second option. So I rotate peak reduction. So this is before, screw all the way to the right. And this is screw all the way to the left. Much darker, you have much less high frequency noise and high frequencies in general in the snare drum. Option 1 will be sounding brighter and a bit more present, so you're gonna hear this noise a bit more in your face. Right? So it's pretty obvious. You basically lower down lows, which means you kind of have more highs, and those highs will be most information what LA28 considers to compress. And that's why it mostly affects high frequencies, that's why it makes it darker. Depending on its settings, you literally can make sound brighter or darker. So as you can see, LA28 is equalizer as well. And this trick is crazy popular on vocals. If it already has too much sibilances, your LA28 with the screw all the way to the left or at 12 o'clock, it can tame some of those sibilances. For example, this is fun song I made for some video like 5 years ago.
To learn from Andrew Zeleno, life is short, so don't hesitate to make just like Christoph LG. Check the trial class and email. To learn from Andrew Zeleno, life is short, so don't hesitate to make just like Christoph LG. Check the trial class and email.
This is Rode K2 microphone, and it has pretty crazy sibilances, and I did pretty not too bad job with the de-essing. But let me turn de-essing off. Listen to sibilances in this phrase.
Check the trial class and email.
Check. Very like bitey and too bright, and it makes vocal outside of the mix. Sibilance S, also like really bitey, too much brightness on it.
Check the trial class and email.
So now on option B, I already rotated, as you can see, this screw all the way to the left. I adjusted peak reduction and I still get 10 decibels. But now notice that sibilances will be much more smoothed out.
Check the trial class and email.
So let's compare. 2, it's when it's tamed.
Check the trial class and email. Check the trial class and email. Check the trial class and email. Check the trial class and email.
So ask yourself, did you learn something important and new in this video? If the answer is yes, remember I put only 10% of the power of my course to my videos. 90% I keep for my students. And I offer you a free trial class where you're gonna be connected to a real class with my students who are taking this course right now in real time, and you will check how exactly we study. It's one of the most powerful courses, structured from A to Z, no bullshit approaches, only things that really work. In the end, you're not gonna be that small guy who feels themselves like I need to chase after somebody famous to learn their mixing techniques, or oh my god, it's a new plugin, maybe it's finally make my mixes better. You're gonna be that big guy for yourself who knows solutions in any situation. How to contact me, the information in the first pinned comment or in the description or on the screen.